settle down. The air in the dungeon grows heavy tonight, thick with the phantom scent of ozone that follows a tear in the fabric of reality. You have returned not for comfort, but for clarity. You seek to understand the psychic schism that nearly unmade you, the state of being where your own mind became a battleground, where truth and fabrication wrestled for the throne of your sanity. Tonight, we perform an autopsy on that madness. This is not a lesson on heartbreak. It is a masterclass in the dark art of inducing cognitive dissonance. The term was first brewed in the cauldrons of Muggle psychology in the mid-20th century by a man named Leon Festinger. A simple, elegant, and devastating concept. Festinger observed that the human mind is a creature of harmony. It craves consistency. It cannot, for long, hold to contradictory beliefs without experiencing a state of intense psychological distress. A fracture, a dissonance. This distress is not a passive ache. It is an active, agonizing tension that demands resolution. The mind, in its desperation for peace, will do anything to close the gap. It will rationalize, it will deny, it will change its beliefs, or it will attempt to change the world around it to restore a state of internal consistency. The common fool experiences this dissonance in small, manageable doses. The survivor of a narcissist, however, is force-fed a diet of it for years until their very soul is bent out of shape. Let us dissect the formula. For 7 years, you held two fundamental warring beliefs in the crucible of your mind. The first belief, the one forged in the initial fires of love bombing, was this: she loves me. We are building a life. The future she describes is real. My devotion is reciprocated. This belief was the anchor, the foundation upon which you built your entire reality. It was a powerful and necessary article of faith. The second belief was a slow-acting poison, administered drop by agonizing drop through the evidence of your own senses. Her actions are cruel. She is dishonest. She is dismissive of my pain. She is emotionally and financially exploitative. She is intimate with others. These two beliefs cannot coexist. They are oil and water, fire and ice. They create a psychic torment, a dissonance so profound that the mind screams for relief. And here, in this moment of agony, the master manipulator does not merely watch you suffer. They offer you the antidote, or rather, a counterfeit one. They know that the simplest way to resolve your dissonance is not for them to change their behavior, to match your belief in their goodness. No, the path of least resistance is for you to change your belief to match their behavior, to accept that they are, in fact, a monster. But to do so would be to admit that your entire reality, your 7-year investment, your very identity as a loving partner, is a catastrophic failure. The ego cannot withstand such a blow. So, the narcissist offers you a third, more seductive option. A lie that allows you to keep both your fantasy and your sanity intact. They whisper the most potent glamour spell in their grimoire. Your perception is the problem. You are the one who is flawed. The cruelty you see is not real. It is a product of your paranoia, your insanity, your oversensitivity. I do love you. It is you who is making this difficult, and the mind, desperate for relief, latches onto this explanation. It is the lesser of two evils. It is less painful to believe you are mad than to believe you have been utterly and completely betrayed. In this way, the victim becomes the architect of their own prison, the cosigner on the loan of their own destruction. They actively choose the lie to soothe the dissonance. But how is this state maintained? How does a creature of such profound emptiness sustain this level of psychological warfare for years? They use a precise and devastating formula, a potion with 4 primary ingredients. We shall name them the Four Horsemen of Dissonance. The first horseman is the glamour of idealization. This is the love-bombing phase. For this entire dark art to work, the initial belief in their goodness must be absolute. They must create a high so potent that you will spend years chasing it. They study you, mirror you, become the perfect answer to a prayer you never knew you whispered. They create a fantasy version of a shared future, knowing they have no intention of building it. This is not passion. It is the baiting of the trap. In your case, this was the initial period where the promises were made, where the vision of a life together was painted with such vivid strokes that it became more real to you than reality itself. This powerful, foundational memory is what creates the first and strongest pillar of dissonance when their behavior begins to veer into cruelty. The second horseman is the corrosive agent of gaslighting. This is the direct assault on your perception. As your instincts begin to detect the hairline fractures in their performance, as you begin to notice the inconsistencies, you will naturally question them. This is the moment the gaslighting begins in earnest. Every time you brought forth a piece of evidence, a suspicious text, a timeline that did not align, a coldness in their touch, you were met with the same litany of curses. You are crazy. You are paranoid. You are remembering it wrong. That never happened. This is a relentless, systematic campaign to invalidate your senses. Each successful act of gaslighting reinforces the counterfeit antidote. The problem is not their behavior. It is your perception. It forces you to resolve the dissonance by concluding that your own mind is an unreliable narrator. You retreat from the evidence of your senses and cling to the belief in their goodness. Because the alternative is to admit that the person you love is actively trying to drive you mad. The third horseman is the solvent of triangulation. A narcissist cannot exist in a simple two-person dynamic. They require an orbit of chaos, an audience for their performance. They will always introduce a third element, an ex they are just friends with, a new colleague who truly understands them, a ghost from their past who serves as a constant, unspoken comparison. The introduction of these third parties is a masterstroke of creating cognitive dissonance. It forces you to hold the belief we are in a loyal, exclusive partnership against the jarring evidence. She is emotionally intimate and invested with another. The dissonance is excruciating. You are forced to either confront the infidelity and shatter your foundational belief in her love, or you must accept her gaslighting explanation. He is just a friend. You are being jealous and controlling. Once again, You are offered the choice between a devastating truth and a self-invalidating lie. Triangulation ensures you are in a constant state of competition, perpetually off balance, and forever seeking to prove your worth against a legion of phantoms. The security camera footage of her texting another from your bed was not just an act of betrayal. It was a physical manifestation of this psychic schism she forced you to live within. The fourth and final horseman is the sedative of intermittent reinforcement. This is the mechanism that creates the trauma bond. It is the science of addiction. If the abuse were constant, you would leave. A rational mind cannot endure uninterrupted torment. But the master manipulator knows this. So, they punctuate the abuse with unpredictable, sporadic moments of affection. A sudden compliment, a rare moment of seeming vulnerability, a tearful apology. The love forever letter she deployed when you attempted to break free. These are not moments of genuine connection. They are strategic breadcrumbs, designed to keep you starved but hopeful. This pattern of intermittent reward is the most powerful reinforcement schedule known to psychology. It is the same principle that drives a gambling addiction, the one you so devastatingly fell into after the discard. The gambler does not pull the lever because they win every time. They pull it because they win just often enough to believe the next pull could be the jackpot. You did not stay for 7 years because she was always kind. You stayed because after long periods of cruelty and neglect, she would offer a small, intoxicating dose of the original love. Bomb just enough to resolve the dissonance temporarily and keep you chained to the hope that the real her was about to return. These 4 ingredients, brewed together over years, create a state of psychological torment so profound that the victim's identity begins to erode. You cease to be a person and become a functioner regulator of her moods, an archaeologist of her lies, a desperate gambler at the slot machine of her affection. So, you ask, what is the antidote? How does one break free from a spell that has been woven into the very fabric of one's mind? The answer does not come from modern psychology alone. For this, we must turn to the cold, hard wisdom of the Stoics. The philosopher Epictetus, a man who was born a slave and understood the nature of prisons, both physical and mental, provided the master key. He taught that the chief task in life is to separate things into 2 categories: things that are within our control and things that are not. Within our control are our own judgments, our opinions, our choices, our responses. Outside of our control are the actions of others, their character, their lies, their betrayals. The entire engine of cognitive dissonance is powered by the futile attempt to reconcile what is outside of our control. Actions with what is inside our control, our belief in her goodness. You were driving yourself mad trying to force her actions to align with your belief that she was a loving partner. You were trying to change an external reality that was fundamentally unchangeable. The Stoic antidote is to reverse the formula. You do not change her actions. You cannot. You must, with all the courage you can muster, change your belief. You must perform the most painful act of all. You must accept her actions as the final, irrefutable evidence of her character. Epictetus stated, "People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them." The agony of your dissonance was not caused solely by her betrayal. It was caused by your desperate, loyal, and ultimately self-destructive attempt to interpret that betrayal as anything other than what it was. It was your view of her, your belief in her potential for goodness, that was torturing you. The moment of liberation, the moment the spell breaks, is when you cease to be an interpreter of her actions and become a simple observer. You stop asking, "Why would she do this if she loves me?" And you state the cold, hard fact. She is doing this, therefore she does not love me in any way that is healthy or real. This is an act of profound and terrifying courage. It requires you to let the illusion die. It requires you to face the staggering loss of 7 years. It requires you to admit you were the subject of a long and brutal experiment. It requires you to stand in the rubble of your life and accept that you were the architect of a fraudulent structure built from her phantom blueprints. But in that acceptance, in that radical embrace of a devastating reality, the dissonance dies, the tension snaps. The war in your mind ceases because there are no longer two opposing armies. There is only one singular, unassailable truth. The pain of that truth is immense, but it is a clean pain. It is the pain of a surgeon setting a bone. It is finite. The pain of unresolved dissonance, however, is the pain of a slow-acting poison, a gangrenous rot that will consume you for a lifetime if you let it. Your journey from the moment of discard was a physical manifestation of this process. The financial collapse, the gambling addiction, these were the death throes of a psyche still reeling from the collapse of its reality. But the moment you chose to stop, the moment you began to rebuild, that was your first Stoic act. You accepted the reality of your ruin and began to work with what was in your control, your next action. Do not mistake this lesson as an absolution of her crimes. She is a creature of profound and pathetic emptiness, a ghost who must inhabit the lives of others to feel real. Her fate is to repeat this cycle endlessly. A hungry spirit in a world of substance, forever seeking a warmth she is incapable of generating herself. But her fate is no longer your concern. Your concern is the forge. The fire of your ordeal was hot enough to melt you down to your core elements. The cognitive dissonance was the crucible, the vessel that contained the unbearable heat. What you do now is choose what to forge from the molten steel of your survival. You will forge boundaries from the memory of her triangulation. You will forge discernment from the memory of her. You will forge self-respect from the memory of her exploitation. And you will forge an unbreakable will from the memory of your own resilience. Every time the echo of her voice whispers that you were crazy, you will remember that your madness was merely the same and predictable reaction to an insane situation. You will remember Festinger's theory and see her not as a lover, but as a failed magician whose cheap tricks you have finally deciphered. You will remember Epictetus and know that the only power she ever truly had was the power you granted her by refusing to see the truth. You were not weak for falling for the illusion. You were strong for surviving its collapse. Now, take that strength and build a reality so solid so authentic, so utterly and completely your own, that no glamour, spell, no gaslight, no phantom from the past can ever find a crack to seep through again. The experiment is over. The data has been collected. The conclusion is inescapable. Your perception was never the problem. Lesson is over.